Hello there, and welcome to the Daily Dose of Lore. I'm so glad you're here. Tonight, we're drifting into Westeros, into the world of fire and blood, where dragons once darkened the skies and a silver-haired dynasty ruled for 3 centuries. Let this be your moment to settle. The world outside can wait. We're exploring the rise and fall of House Targaryen, from their ancient home in Valyria to the Iron Throne they forged, from the glory of dragonfire to the silence of ashes. Some stories may surprise you. Others will simply drift by like embers on the wind. If this helps you unwind, a like helps others find their way here too. But for now, let's begin our journey into the Age of Dragons. Valyria rose from volcanic fire, built upon 14 flames that burned beneath the earth, never sleeping, never cooling. The Valyrian freehold stretched across the eastern continent for 5,000 years, a civilization of such power and knowledge that even now, centuries after its destruction, the world still whispers its name with wonder and fear. 40 dragonlord families ruled this empire, each commanding beasts that could melt stone and boil rivers, each family jealously guarding secrets of blood magic and ancient spells. The air above Valyria shimmered with heat, thick with the smell of sulfur and molten rock, while below the city, in chambers carved from obsidian, slaves worked the mines that fed the empire's hunger. At night, the glow of the 14 flames painted the clouds red and gold, as if the sky itself were burning, and dragons wheeled through smoke-heavy air, their shadows crossing over towers of fused black stone that defied the limits of ordinary architecture. The Targaryens were not the greatest of Valyria's dragonlord families, not the wealthiest or the most powerful. They held a minor seat in the political landscape of the freehold, their voice one among 40 in councils where empires were decided and slaves were counted in the millions. But they possessed something the other families dismissed, something that would save their bloodline when all others perished. They had the gift of dragon dreams, visions that came in sleep, prophecies that walked the boundary between madness and truth. Other families laughed at such claims, called them superstition, dismissed the Targaryens as eccentric and weak. The truly powerful families competed for dominance in Valyria itself, building higher towers, commanding more dragons, accumulating wealth that could purchase kingdoms. The Targaryens, however, looked westward, across the smoking sea toward distant lands that held no glory, no riches, only green hills and gray waters. Daenerys the Dreamer woke one night with visions of fire consuming everything she knew, flames rising from the earth to devour the greatest civilization the world had ever seen. She saw the 14 flames explode in cataclysm, saw the sea boil and the land crack open, saw dragons falling from the sky as the very air turned to poison and heat. Her father, Eonar Targaryen, believed her, though the other families mocked them both, though they sacrificed position and prestige, though they abandoned everything they had built in Valyria over generations. 12 years before the Doom, the Targaryens loaded 5 dragons onto ships and sailed west to Dragonstone, a fortress of volcanic rock sitting in Blackwater Bay, an outpost considered so remote and worthless that no other family competed for it. They left behind the greatest city in the world, left behind power and wealth, left behind everything except their lives and their dragons. The other families celebrated their departure, claimed the Targaryens had finally revealed their weakness, had run away from true competition. Then came the Doom, and Valyria died in a single night of fire. The earth opened, and the 14 flames erupted simultaneously, volcanoes exploding with such force that the sound was heard 300 miles away across the ocean. Mountains collapsed, cities melted, the ground itself liquefied as temperatures rose beyond anything imaginable. 400 miles of coastline simply ceased to exist. The land sinking beneath waves that turned to steam, creating the smoking sea that still boils and kills centuries later. Every dragon except those 5 that fled with the Targaryens perished in the flames. Their bones turned to ash, their eggs boiled in their shells. The 40 families died, every last dragonlord consumed, their towers of fused black stone reduced to slag, their accumulated knowledge of 4,000 years lost in hours. Ships that ventured too close to the ruins decades later returned with crews driven mad, or did not return at all. The Doom transformed the most advanced civilization in history into a haunted wasteland, where the very water was poison and the air shimmered with residual heat that would never fade. On Dragonstone, the Targaryens watched smoke rise on the eastern horizon for weeks, a column of darkness that blocked out the sun. They were the last dragonlords, the final inheritors of Valyrian blood magic and ancient knowledge. What they felt in those days, standing on their island of black stone and watching their entire civilization die across the sea, the histories do not record. Perhaps grief, perhaps vindication, perhaps the terrible weight of survival when all others have perished. They were alone now. An exiled family become the only family, minor nobility suddenly bearing the entire inheritance of the greatest empire the world had known. They had 5 dragons when all other dragons were gone. They had knowledge of Valyrian steel forging when all other forges had melted. They had the blood of Old Valyria in their veins when all other bloodlines had turned to ash. And they had nowhere to go but west, toward the 7 quarreling kingdoms that knew nothing of dragonfire or empire. Dragonstone had been built by Valyrian magic in the days before the Doom. Its walls and towers shaped from living rock through sorceries now lost to time. The fortress rose from volcanic stone in the form of dragons, every tower carved to resemble a worm. Every wall decorated with scales and claws rendered in black rock. Gargoyles shaped like dragons perched on every surface, their open mouths serving as machicolations through which boiling oil could be poured, their wings spread to shield the windows from siege weapons. The castle smelled of salt and sulfur, the scent of the sea mixing with the volcanic fumes that still rose from vents in the rock. At high tide, waves crashed against the base of the curtain walls with such force that spray reached the highest towers, coating everything in brine that dried to white crystals in the sun. The drum tower beat like a heart in strong winds, its peculiar construction causing the air to resonate with a deep, throbbing sound that carried for miles. In the great hall, the throne was carved from a single block of stone to resemble a dragon curled in sleep, its tail forming the armrests, its wings spread as a canopy overhead. The Targaryens lived on Dragonstone for a century after the Doom, watching the free cities rise from the ashes of Valyria's former colonies, watching the West from their volcanic island, breeding their 5 dragons into many. They fished the waters around their island, mined the obsidian that ran in veins through the volcanic rock, and slowly, carefully built their strength. Their dragons grew larger with each generation, fed on fish and sheep, sleeping in caves carved into the mountain's heart, where warmth from the earth's fire kept them comfortable through winter. The island's small folk, descendants of slaves who had worked the Valyrian outpost, learned to live alongside the dragons, learned to recognize each beast by the sound of its wings, learned when to seek shelter, and when it was safe to work the terraced gardens that clung to Dragonstone's steep slopes. At night, dragonfire lit the sky as the beasts hunted, their flames reflecting off low clouds visible from the mainland 30 miles away across Blackwater Bay. Aegon Targaryen was born on Dragonstone, while dragons circled overhead, born into a family that had been preparing for destiny without quite knowing what form that destiny would take. He grew tall and strong, with the silver-gold hair and purple eyes that marked him as pure Valyrian, untainted by the blood of the Sunset Kingdoms. He had 2 sisters, Visenya and Rhaenys, and following the traditions of Old Valyria, he married them both, taking them as sister wives to keep the blood pure, to preserve the magic that allowed them to ride dragons and withstand fire. The faith of the Seven preached against such unions, called them abomination, but the Targaryens followed older laws written in flame and blood. Aegon rode Balerion, called the Black Dread, a dragon so massive his shadow could engulf entire towns. Visenya rode Vhagar, silver blue and savage, nearly as large as Balerion. Rhaenys rode Meraxes, whose scales shimmered gold in sunlight. Together, the 3 of them represented more military power than all the armies of Westeros combined. The 7 kingdoms were not truly 7 when Aegon looked west from his throne of carved stone. The north stretched from the wall to the neck, vast and wild under the rule of House Stark. The Vale of Arryn hid behind its mountains, thinking itself impregnable behind the bloody gate. The Riverlands suffered under Ironborn occupation, conquered by Harren the Black, who had built the largest castle in the world. The Reach bloomed under House Gardener, wealthy and fertile, its armies numbering in the tens of thousands. The Stormlands thundered with the wars of Argilac Durrandon, the Storm King. Dorne broiled in desert sun, independent and unconquered. The Westerlands sparkled with Lannister gold, rich beyond measure. These kingdoms had warred against each other for thousands of years, had risen and fallen in cycles of conquest and rebellion, but none had ever united them all. None had possessed the power to forge 7 into 1. Aegon possessed that power, sleeping in caves beneath Dragonstone, waiting for the word to wake and burn and conquer. Aegon landed at the mouth of the Blackwater Rush with 1,600 men, a force so small that the lords of Westeros laughed when they heard the numbers. They stopped laughing when Balerion took to the sky, when Dragonfire turned their armies to ash, when knights in steel armor melted inside their suits and horses screamed and ran, burning through camp. The Conquest took 2 years, and in those 2 years, 3 dragons reshaped the political landscape of an entire continent. Aegon rarely spoke of why he chose to conquer Westeros, offered no grand speeches about unification or destiny, simply landed on that beach and began issuing demands. Submit or burn, kneel or die. Those who bent the knee kept their lands and titles. Those who resisted found their castles reduced to slag, their armies scattered by creatures that could not be fought with sword or spear. At the Field of Fire, 4,000 men perished in minutes when all 3 dragons attacked simultaneously, their flames meeting and merging into a conflagration that consumed everything within its reach, leaving nothing but blackened earth and melted armor. Torrhen Stark marched south with 30,000 men, the largest army the North had ever assembled, ready to defend the independence his family had held for thousands of years. He made it as far as the Trident before his scouts reported what they had seen at the Field of Fire, before the Maesters calculated the odds, before Torrhen realized that valor and honor meant nothing against dragonfire. He could fight and watch the North burn, could lead his men to certain death for the sake of pride, or he could make the choice that would preserve his people. On a field south of the Trident, Torrhen Stark knelt before Aegon Targaryen and laid his crown at the conqueror's feet, earning himself the name the King Who Knelt from some and the King Who Saved Us from others. The North kept its lands, its laws, its customs, but it kept them as subjects of the Iron Throne, not as an independent kingdom. Aegon took Torrhen's crown and melted it with all the others he had gathered, forging from the metal of defeated kings a throne that would seat the rulers of a united realm. The Iron Throne was made from the swords of Aegon's enemies, 1,000 blades taken from those who had bent the knee or died refusing, melted by Balerian's fire into a seat that towered above the court, sharp and jagged and deliberately uncomfortable. Aegon wanted no king to sit easy, wanted the throne to be a reminder that rule was responsibility, not luxury, that power came with the threat of cutting yourself on its edges. It took 59 days to forge, with Balerion breathing flame onto blade after blade as blacksmiths worked in shifts to shape the metal while it was soft. The finished throne had steps leading up to the seat, swords jutting at angles from its base, armrests formed from hilts and crossguards, a back that rose twice the height of a man with blades creating a crown of iron above the king's head. Anyone approaching the throne had to climb those steps, had to pass within reach of dozens of edges, had to literally navigate a forest of swords to reach the seat of power. The throne cut Aegon more than once, and every king after him, giving rise to the saying that the Iron Throne rejected unworthy rulers by drawing their blood. King's Landing grew from a muddy battlefield into a city because Aegon chose to make it his capital rather than returning to Dragonstone's volcanic isolation. Where he first landed became the site of his castle, the Red Keep, built over 15 years into a massive fortress of red stone that overlooked Blackwater Bay. The city sprawled around the castle, attracting merchants and craftsmen, nobles and peasants, anyone seeking opportunity in the capital of a newly unified realm. Within a generation, King's Landing had grown into the largest city in Westeros, its population swelling to hundreds of thousands, its streets winding and crooked, built without plan or reason as neighborhoods expanded in response to need rather than design. The smell of the city became legendary, a mixture of smoke and salt, fish and sewage, bread baking and bodies unwashed, all of it pressed together between 7 hills. At the peak of the highest hill sat the Red Keep with its walls of sandstone, and above the keep, the Dragon Pit would eventually rise, a massive dome where dragons could be housed within the city itself, close to their riders. Aegon's reign lasted 37 years, and for most of that time, the realm knew peace under the shadow of dragons. Lords who had spent centuries warring against each other found themselves subjects of the same king, forced to settle disputes in court rather than on the battlefield, their ancient feuds held in check by the knowledge that rebellion meant dragonfire. Aegon rode Balerion across the kingdom, landing unexpectedly in towns and castles, hearing petitions, dispensing justice, reminding everyone that the dragon was never far away. He built roads to connect the kingdom, established laws that applied everywhere rather than just within individual regions, created institutions that would outlast him. But he never conquered Dorne, despite trying twice. The Dornish fought differently, refusing to meet dragons in open battle, striking from ambush, melting into the deserts and mountains. When Rhaenys and Meraxes attacked Sunspear, a scorpion bolt found the dragon's eye, sending both queen and beast crashing to earth. Rhaenys died that day, and though Aegon burned Dornish castles in revenge, Dorne remained independent, unconquered. Aegon died at 64, likely of a stroke, collapsing during a small council meeting and never waking. Balerion outlived him, the great dragon growing old alongside the king he had carried through Conquest. The Black Dread lived to be at least 200 years old, possibly older, the last dragon to remember Old Valyria before the Doom, the last creature alive who had flown over the freehold in its glory. His skull was so massive that a horse could ride through his jaws, his teeth as long as swords, his bones black as midnight. In his final years, Balerion became sluggish, sleeping for weeks at a time in the dragon pit, rousing only occasionally to feed on cattle brought to him. When he finally died during the reign of Aegon's grandson, the Targaryens lost their most powerful weapon, the dragon whose shadow alone had convinced kingdoms to kneel. They mounted his skull in the throne room as a reminder of what they had been, what power they had wielded, but the living presence of the Black Dread could never be replaced. Aenys, Aegon's eldest son by Rhaenys, inherited a throne his father had won through dragonfire but which he was ill-suited to hold. Where Aegon had been decisive and commanding, Aenys was gentle and uncertain, preferring music and poetry to governance, seeking to please everyone, and therefore pleasing no one. The faith militant rose in rebellion against him, calling the Targaryens abominations, denouncing their practice of sibling marriage, arming thousands of zealots who believed they fought for the gods. Aenys tried negotiation and compromise, tried to appease the faith while maintaining his family's traditions, and succeeded only in appearing weak. Lords who had submitted to Aegon's dragons sensed opportunity in his son's weakness, began testing the boundaries of their loyalty, withholding taxes, ignoring summons to court. The realm that Aegon had unified through force of will and dragonfire began to fragment under his son's tentative rule. Aenys died after 6 years on the throne, likely from the strain of trying to hold together a kingdom while satisfying competing interests, his health collapsing under the weight of responsibilities he had never been trained to handle. Maegor seized the throne from his nephew, Aenys's son, claiming it through force and fear rather than any legitimate right of succession. He was Aegon's son by Visenya, harder and crueler than his half-brother, willing to do what Aenys had not, willing to answer rebellion with such brutal violence that no one would dare rebel again. He earned the name Maegor the Cruel through actions that shocked even a realm accustomed to harsh justice. When the faith militant continued their uprising, Maegor hunted them without mercy, burning septs, executing prisoners, offering bounties that brought him the heads of zealots by the thousands. He had the heads mounted on spikes lining the roads to King's Landing, a forest of death that stretched for miles, rotting in the sun as a warning to anyone who questioned Targaryen rule. He built the Red Keep's most secure sections during his reign, creating Maegor's holdfast with secret passages and traps, and when construction finished, he had every man who worked on it executed to ensure the secrets died with them. Maegor's cruelty eventually consumed him. After 6 years of tyranny, he was found dead on the Iron Throne with his wrists slashed, though whether by his own hand, by assassination, or by some darker force, no one could say. The throne was slick with his blood, the swords that formed it red from base to peak, and his body sat slumped against the jagged metal he had sought to claim through terror. His nephew Jaehaerys, Aenys's second son, took the throne at 14 and would prove to be everything his uncle was not. Jaehaerys ruled for 55 years, the longest reign of any Targaryen king, and under his guidance the realm finally found the peace and prosperity that Aegon had promised. He made peace with the faith, reformed the laws, built roads and infrastructure, dispensed justice fairly, and married for love rather than merely duty. Queen Alysanne rode her dragon Silverwing farther north than any Targaryen before, flying beyond the wall to see the great barrier of ice that protected the realm from whatever dwelt in the darkness beyond. The Night's Watch had never seen a dragon so close, had never heard the sound of massive wings beating in the frozen air, had never felt the heat of dragon fire melt the ancient ice in great steaming gouts. Alysanne listened to their requests for help, saw how thin their numbers had grown, how stretched their resources, and returned to King's Landing to convince Jaehaerys to aid them. The Crown began sending regular support to the Wall, a practice that would continue for generations, all because one queen flew north and witnessed their need. She also gave the Watch a gift, an ancient horn said to have powers, though what those powers might be, and whether the horn survives, remains a mystery whispered about in the ides halls of Castle Black on long winter nights. Jaehaerys and Alysanne had 13 children, but death claimed many of them despite all the power and wealth of the crown. Sons died in accidents, daughters succumbed to illness, the natural cruelties of a medieval world taking their toll even on dragonlords. The succession became complicated as children who had been expected to inherit died before their father, forcing the king to name new heirs, to navigate the expectations of a nobility that watched jealously for any advantage. When Jaehaerys grew old, and it became clear his health was failing, the question of succession threatened to tear the realm apart. His eldest son had died, and that son's eldest child was a daughter, Rhaenys, while his second son had also died, but left a son, Viserys. The realm divided between those who believed inheritance should pass through the eldest line regardless of gender, and those who believed male heirs should take precedence. The Great Council of 101 AC convened to settle the succession without plunging the realm into civil war. Lords from across Westeros gathered in King's Landing to debate, to argue, to politic and scheme, each pushing for the candidate that would best serve their own interests. The proceedings lasted 2 weeks, with speeches and accusations, threats and promises, the weight of the realm's future pressing down on every word spoken in that hall. In the end, the lords chose Viserys, Jaehaerys' grandson through the male line, over Rhaenys, his granddaughter through the female line. The decision established a precedent that would echo through generations, enshrining male preference in Targaryen succession, a choice that seemed to settle the question but which would, decades later, lead to the bloodiest civil war the dynasty ever faced. Rhaenys accepted the decision with grace, but those who supported her felt the sting of rejection, believed she had been passed over not because she lacked merit, but because she was a woman, and they would remember that injustice when history repeated itself. Viserys, I inherited a peaceful realm and a full treasury, the benefits of Jaehaerys' long and prosperous reign, but he lacked his grandfather's political wisdom. He was kind and indulgent, generous to a fault, preferring to avoid conflict rather than make hard decisions, and his reign sowed the seeds of catastrophe through well-meaning mistakes. He named his daughter Rhaenyra as his heir after his wife died, giving him only a female child, declaring her Princess of Dragonstone, having all the lords of the realm swear oaths to uphold her succession. Then he remarried, and his new wife, Alicent Hightower, gave him sons, complicating everything. Custom and precedent suggested that a king's son should inherit before his daughter, but Viserys refused to disinherit Rhaenyra, refused to break his word, insisted that the oaths would hold. He believed that love and loyalty would be enough, that if he simply maintained peace during his life, the succession would sort itself out after his death. He was wrong. When Viserys died, the realm split. Rhaenyra was at Dragonstone when she received word that her half-brother Aegon had been crowned in King's Landing, that Alicent Hightower and her father Otto had moved quickly to secure the capital, that the oaths sworn to uphold Rhaenyra's succession had been broken before Viserys's body was cold. The Greens, as Aegon's supporters came to be called, argued that no woman had ever ruled Westeros, that the Great Council's precedent made male succession clear, that the stability of the realm required a king rather than a queen. The Blacks, rallying to Rhaenyra, countered that oaths were sacred, that Viserys's word was law, that breaking a king's decree was treason regardless of the justification. Both sides believed they fought for legitimacy, for the rightful heir, for the good of the realm. Both sides had dragons. The war that followed would be called the Dance of the Dragons, and it would bring the dynasty to its knees. The dance killed dragons like nothing before or since, turning the Targaryens' greatest strength into their greatest tragedy. 20 dragons died in the war, magnificent beasts centuries old reduced to corpses rotting in fields or sinking beneath waves or burned by the fire of their own kind. Dragon fought dragon in the skies above Westeros, something that had not happened since the Valyrian civil wars 5,000 years past. Their battles shaking the earth when they fell, their blood running in rivers that stained the ground black. At Rook's Rest, Meleys the Red Queen engaged Sunfire and Vhagar simultaneously, the three dragons twisting through the air in a deadly dance, flame meeting flame, claws tearing at scales, until Meleys and her rider crashed to earth, and the princess's body was found broken among the ruins of her dragon. Above the god's eye, Daemon on Caraxes met his nephew Aemond on Vhagar, the two men driving their dragons against each other in a fury of hatred, locked together as they plummeted into the lake, neither man nor dragon emerging from those dark waters. Blood and cheese brought the war's cruelty into the royal family's private chambers in a way that shocked even those accustomed to violence. 2 assassins infiltrated the Red Keep, hired by Daemon to avenge his stepson's death, tasked with taking a life for a life. They found Queen Helaena with her children and committed an act so terrible that the details are whispered rather than spoken aloud, forcing choices that no mother should face, leaving devastation that no amount of gold or power could repair. The event shattered Helaena's mind, left her broken in ways that never healed, transformed the war from a political dispute about succession into something darker, something personal, something that demanded blood answer blood in an ever-escalating spiral. The death of an innocent child turned the conflict vicious in ways it had not been before. Hardened hearts that might have sought peace, convinced both sides that mercy was weakness and that only total victory could justify the losses already suffered. Rhaenyra held King's Landing for 6 months after Aegon fled the capital, sitting the Iron Throne her father had promised her, ruling the realm that had been hers by right. But the small folk turned against her, blamed her for the war's hardships, for the dragons that burned their crops and the taxes that emptied their purses. The treasury was depleted, The city was hungry, and Rhaenyra's attempts to rule fairly were seen as weakness by those who had supported Aegon. Riots broke out in the streets. The dragon pit was stormed by a mob that killed 5 dragons in a frenzy of fear and rage. The beasts trapped inside the dome as fire spread and the roof collapsed, crushing them beneath tons of stone. Rhaenyra fled King's Landing as her support crumbled, sailing to Dragonstone hoping to find sanctuary in her ancestral home. Instead, she found betrayal. Aegon had survived his injuries and reached Dragonstone first, and when Rhaenyra landed, she was captured. Rhaenyra's end came on Dragonstone, in front of her son Aegon, as Sunfire, wounded and savage, fulfilled his rider's command. The dragon had barely survived Rook's Rest, his wing torn, his scales scarred, but he remained loyal to Aegon the X, and when ordered, he consumed the woman who had challenged his rider's throne. Young Aegon watched his mother die, the trauma of that moment marking him for life, earning him the name Aegon the Dragonbane. Though he had killed no dragon himself, he would become king at 11, ruling over a realm exhausted by war, haunted by the memory of watching his mother's final moments, never able to ride a dragon despite being Targaryen, never able to overcome what he had witnessed in his childhood. His reign would be melancholy and brief, the joy of youth stolen by violence, the promise of dragons turned to ash. Aegon II himself survived his sister by only half a year before poison found its way into his cup, administered by those who had grown tired of his rule, who saw him as damaged and weak, who wanted the war's last reminder gone so the realm could heal. He died in pain, his body already broken from dragon battle at Rook's Rest, where Sunfire had crashed with him still in the saddle, his legs crushed, his mind twisted by grief and rage. The Iron Throne had rejected him repeatedly, cutting him every time he sat upon it, as if the crown itself knew he had taken it through broken oaths and bloodshed. With both claimants dead, the dance of the dragons ended not with victory, but with exhaustion, leaving the realm to bury its dead and wonder if the Targaryens had destroyed themselves in their quest to rule. The war's final count was staggering. 20 dragons dead of the 26 that had lived at the war's start, their bloodlines broken, the knowledge of how to raise them properly lost in the chaos. Tens of thousands of men perished in battle. Entire noble houses were extinguished. Castles lay in ruins, fields burned, and the small folk starved through winters made harsher by the devastation. The Targaryens still had dragons when the dance ended, but they were fewer, younger, smaller, and something had broken in the bond between human and beast. Dragons born after the war were different somehow, more aggressive, harder to train, as if the species itself had been traumatized by watching its kind destroy each other. The dragon pit lay in ruins, its dome collapsed, a monument to the night the small folk rose up against their fear and killed the beasts they blamed for their suffering. The surviving dragons grew sick and small, each generation weaker than the last, as if the species was dying along with the Targaryen dynasty's power. Dragons hatched with deformities, their wings twisted, their flames weak, their growth stunted. Where Balerion had grown large enough to swallow horses, these new dragons barely reached the size of ponies before they sickened and died. The Meisters theorized that confining dragons in the dragon pit had limited their growth, that the great beasts needed freedom and space to achieve their legendary size, that the decision to keep them within the city had doomed them. Others whispered of darker causes, of curses laid during the storming of the dragon pit, of the Targaryens' own actions during the dance having poisoned their connection to the creatures that had made them kings. Whatever the cause, the last dragon, a small and sickly thing, died during Aegon III's reign, its death marking the end of an era. Aegon III ruled for 26 years, but found no joy in it, his childhood trauma leaving him somber and withdrawn, unable to smile, finding no pleasure in the power he had inherited through so much bloodshed. He was called the Dragonbane, the Unlucky, the Broken King, though he had done nothing to deserve such names except survive when others had not. He married and produced heirs because duty demanded it, but he took no pleasure in anything, moving through his reign like a ghost haunting his own life. The dragon eggs his court tried to hatch refused to quicken no matter what spells or fires were applied, as if the creatures knew their time had ended, as if they chose extinction over serving a dynasty that had turned their kind against each other. When the last dragon died, Aegon did not seem surprised, or even particularly saddened, as if he had known all along that everything he loved would turn to ash. Balerion, the Black Dread, had been the largest dragon ever recorded, his wingspan so vast that entire armies could shelter in his shadow, his roar audible for miles, his presence enough to make kingdoms surrender without battle. Born in Valyria before the Doom, he had lived through the Empire's fall, witnessed the flight to Dragonstone, carried Aegon through the Conquest, and survived long enough to see the realm united. His scales were pure black, darker than coal, absorbing light rather than reflecting it, making him nearly invisible at night except for his eyes which glowed like crimson fires. When he opened his jaws, the heat inside could be seen distorting the air, and his flames burned hot enough to melt stone into rivers, to turn sand into glass, to reduce men in steel armor to nothing but puddles of metal. In his prime, Balerion could fly for days without rest, crossing the continent in hours, his appetite requiring whole herds of cattle to satisfy. His skull, mounted in the throne room after his death, dominated the space, larger than a wagon, a reminder of what the Targaryens had commanded when they ruled with fire. Vhagar had been Visenya's mount during the Conquest and lived nearly as long as Balerion, growing to immense size through sheer longevity. By the time of the dance, she was the largest living dragon, her scales a pale bronze green, her temperament savage after outliving multiple riders. She was ponderous in flight, her age making her slower than younger dragons, but her size and experience made her deadly nonetheless. When she closed her jaws around another dragon, nothing escaped, and her flames could engulf entire areas in firestorms that killed everything within. Her roar was deeper than Balerion's, a sound that seemed to come from the earth itself, rattling bones and stopping hearts. She died, locked in battle with Caraxes above the God's Eye, the two dragons so entangled that they fell together, disappearing beneath the lake's dark waters. Fishermen claimed to see bones in the depths on clear days, massive ribs forming a cage of death at the bottom of the lake. But none dared dive deep enough to confirm what legends said rested there. Meraxes had been Rhaenys' dragon, beautiful and terrible, her scales reflecting gold in sunlight, her personality gentler than Vhagar's, but no less deadly in battle. She had perished in Dorne during Aegon's second attempt to conquer that desert kingdom, a scorpion bolt finding her eye, the giant projectile punching through scale and socket to pierce her brain. She fell from the sky like a star, her rider still in the saddle, both queen and dragon crashing into Dorne's sands and dying far from home. Aegon never recovered from his sister-wife's death, burned Dornish castles in revenge but never successfully conquered the kingdom, the memory of Meraxes' fall tempering his ambition. Her skull joined Balerian's in the throne room eventually, smaller but still massive, her jaws forever open in a silent roar, a reminder that even dragons could die, that Targaryen power had limits, that not every kingdom would kneel. Caraxes, called the Bloodworm, had been long and serpentine, red as blood, his neck unusually elongated, his shape more worm than traditional dragon. He had served multiple riders before Daemon claimed him, and together they had been perfectly matched, both aggressive and unpredictable, both deadly in ways that kept enemies wary. Caraxes' roar was described as haunting, a sound like a scream rather than the deep rumble of larger dragons, and he moved through the air with unusual grace despite his odd proportions. In battle, he struck like a snake, his long neck allowing him to reach around defenses, his teeth designed for piercing rather than crushing. When he fought Vhagar above the god's eye, he managed to tear out the larger dragon's throat even as Vhagar's jaws closed on him. Both dragons mortally wounded, falling together with their riders still bound to their saddles, disappearing into water that would never give up its dead. Syrax had been Rhaenyra's dragon, golden and beautiful, her scales glittering in sunlight like the coins of the goddess she was named for. She had been more ornamental than warlike, rarely used in battle, kept instead at Dragonstone and later King's Landing as a symbol of royal power rather than an active weapon. When the mob stormed the dragon pit, Syrax was outside, and Rhaenyra, hearing the chaos, allowed her dragon to fly toward the dome, perhaps hoping to save the other dragons trapped inside, perhaps simply responding to their distress calls. Syrax died in the streets of King's Landing, brought down by the mob, ropes and spears and fire overwhelming her, her golden scales torn and bloodied, her final moments a far cry from the dignity she had known as a queen's mount. Her death marked the moment when the small folk's fear of dragons transformed into active hatred, when the creatures ceased to be objects of awe and became targets of rage. Sunfire, Aegon II's mount, had been called the most beautiful dragon ever seen, his scales shimmering gold and copper, reflecting light in ways that made him seem to burn even when not breathing fire. He had been grievously wounded at Rook's Rest, his wing torn, his leg broken, his scales scarred by Meleys's claws, but he survived and healed, remaining loyal to Aegon throughout the war. When Aegon commanded him to kill Rhaenyra, Sunfire obeyed despite his injuries. His final act of service to his rider before his own wounds finally claimed him. He died on Dragonstone, his beautiful scales dulled by injury and starvation, his magnificence reduced to pain and duty, buried on the island where the Targaryens had first made their home in Westeros. Some said he had been the last truly magnificent dragon, that after his death, no dragon ever achieved such beauty again, as if something essential had died with him. Cannibal had lived wild on Dragonstone, never claimed by any rider, black as coal with green eyes that reflected light like a cat's, feared even by other dragons. He earned his name by eating dragon eggs and hatchlings, by attacking younger dragons when they were vulnerable, by behavior that was savage even by dragon standards. Multiple dragon seeds tried to claim him during the dance, seeking the power of a riderless dragon, but Cannibal killed and ate them all, his lair decorated with blackened bones of those who thought themselves worthy. He disappeared after the dance, flying away from Dragonstone one day and never returning, his fate unknown. Some claimed he still lived in the mountains of the moon, grown impossibly old and large, while others insisted he had flown east toward the ruins of Valyria, drawn back to the homeland of his kind. His legend persisted in whispers: the wild dragon who answered to no one, who survived the dance by refusing to participate, who might still fly somewhere in the world, a remnant of power lost. The Dragon Pit had been built to hold dragons within King's Landing, a massive, domed structure on one of the city's hills, large enough to house 40,000 spectators when used for ceremonies. Its walls were 40 feet thick, built to contain dragonfire, its dome covering an area larger than any sept or castle in Westeros. Dragons were kept in pits beneath the main floor, in spaces carved from stone and heated by vents that channeled warmth from fires below. The small folk had tolerated the dragon pit during peacetime, even taken pride in it as a symbol of their city's importance. But when war came and dragons began burning the countryside, tolerance turned to fear. On the night of the riots, thousands stormed the structure, overwhelming the guards, killing the keepers, driving dragons back into their pits with spears and fire. The dragons fought back, flames filling the dome, the structure becoming an oven that cooked attackers even as the mob pressed forward, until finally the dome collapsed under the heat, crushing dragons and humans alike beneath tons of stone. Dreamfire had been one of the oldest dragons at the time of the dance, pale blue with silver markings, her scales catching light like moonlight on water, her temperament gentle despite her size. She had served Queen Helaena. The two of them bonded in ways that seemed to transcend the usual rider-dragon relationship, as if they shared the same melancholy, the same sensitivity to the world's cruelties. When Blood and Cheese committed their terrible act, Dreamfire felt Helaena's anguish, roared and thrashed in her chains beneath the dragon pit, sensed the suffering of her rider, though they were separated by stone and distance. On the night the mob stormed the dragon pit, Dreamfire broke free from her chains, fought with desperate fury, killed dozens of attackers before the weight of numbers and the collapse of the dome brought her down. Some said she died trying to reach Helaena, that the dragon's final act was an attempt to save her rider from the madness that would eventually drive the queen to take her own life. Sea Smoke had been a pale, silver-gray dragon, smaller than the great beasts but swift and agile, ridden first by Leonor Valerian and later by a dragon seed named Adam after Leonor's mysterious disappearance. He was known for flying low over water, his belly nearly touching the waves, his reflection rippling beneath him, his pale coloring making him seem like smoke over the sea. At the Battle of Tumbleton, Sea Smoke engaged two dragons simultaneously, Vermithor and Tessarion, the three beasts spiraling through the sky in a deadly dance until all three crashed to earth, their combined weight shaking the ground, their mingled flames setting the town ablaze. Adam died in the saddle, still strapped to Sea Smoke, both of them consumed by fire from the other dragons, their loyalty to Rhaenyra costing them everything. The battle marked one of the bloodiest days of the dance, when 3 dragons died in minutes and a town burned as collateral damage. Vermithor, called the Bronze Fury, had been King Jaehaerys' mount, a massive, bronze-scaled beast that had lived through the glory days of Targaryen power. After Jaehaerys died, Vermithor remained riderless for decades, growing increasingly wild, living in a cave on Dragonstone, fed by keepers but answering to no one. During the dance, a dragon seed named Hugh claimed him, the commoner somehow bonding with the ancient dragon, gaining power that went to his head, making him dangerous and unpredictable. Vermithor's size and age made him one of the most formidable dragons in the war, second only to Vhagar, his bronze scales scarred from decades of life, his temperament that of a beast who had outlived his true rider and served his new one out of something other than love. When he died at Tumbleton, locked in combat with Sea Smoke and Tessarion, it marked the loss of one of the last dragons who remembered the realm before the dance, before everything fell apart. Silverwing had been Queen Alysanne's mount, a beautiful she-dragon with silver scales that seemed to glow in moonlight, her disposition as gentle as Alysanne's own. She had flown north to the Wall, east to the Summer Sea. Everywhere Alysanne traveled in her years of service to the realm, the two of them beloved by small folk who saw them as symbols of hope rather than terror. After Alysanne died, Silverwing mourned, refusing to accept another rider for years, living on Dragonstone in melancholy. During the dance, a woman named Ulf the White claimed her, though the bond seemed incomplete, as if Silverwing tolerated him rather than truly accepted him. She survived the dance, one of the few dragons to do so, but after Ulf's death she flew to an island in the Red Lake and made her nest there, never accepting another rider, living out her days alone until she died of old age, the last dragon to perish naturally rather than in violence. Morning hatched during the dance, her egg laid during the war, her birth seen as a symbol of hope by those who supported Rhaenyra. She was tiny, pink-scaled, barely large enough to ride even by the war's end, her flames weak, her growth slow. She survived the conflict but never achieved the size of older dragons, never became the mighty beast her supporters had hoped for. Morning represented the beginning of the end for dragons, proof that something had broken in their breeding, that the new generation would never match the old. She died young, still small, and with her death the hopes of restoring dragon power faded further. Her name, chosen to represent new beginnings, became ironic, a reminder that dawn does not always bring renewal, that sometimes night simply gives way to a gray and diminished day. The practice of binding dragons grew from necessity as the beasts became harder to control, their wildness increasing as their connection to the Targaryens weakened. Chains were forged in Qohor, massive links of steel that could hold even large dragons, though the strongest beasts could break them if sufficiently motivated. The dragon pits were designed with these chains in mind, anchor points built into the stone where dragons could be secured when not in use, a prison disguised as a home. The dragons accepted the chains because they were fed, because their riders commanded it, because even mighty beasts can be conditioned to captivity if it begins young enough. But the chains also limited them, kept them from the freedom that allowed growth, confined them to spaces too small for creatures meant to rule the sky. Some Meisters theorize that this captivity itself contributed to the dragon's decline, that beings of fire and air could not thrive in stone cages, that the Targaryens' decision to keep dragons in the city was the beginning of their extinction. Dragons grew throughout their lives, never stopping, limited only by food and space and lifespan. Valyrian's size at 200 years dwarfed what he had been at 50, his growth exponential over the centuries, each year adding mass and wingspan until he became the monster of legend. Younger dragons kept in the dragon pit never achieved such size, their growth stunted by confinement, their potential limited by the human desire to keep them close and controlled. Wild dragons like Cannibal grew larger than their captive cousins, ranging free, hunting when and where they wished, their size proof that freedom mattered to a dragon's development. This knowledge came too late to save the species. The realization that the Targaryens' desire for control had doomed the very creatures that gave them power. That in caging dragons, they had killed them as surely as any sword. Dragon eggs were objects of immense value and mystery, their shells harder than steel, their colors ranging from pale cream to deepest black, swirled with patterns that seemed to shift in different light. Some eggs hatched quickly when placed in fire, the heat triggering whatever magic allowed dragon life to quicken. Others sat for years, decades, centuries without hatching, stone hard and dormant, waiting for conditions that might never come. After the last dragon died, the Targaryens kept their remaining eggs, attempted every ritual and spell documented in their archives, placed them in fires hot enough to melt stone, but nothing worked. The eggs remained dead stone, beautiful but lifeless, reminders of power lost. Some disappeared over the years, stolen or sold or given as gifts to foreign dignitaries, scattered across the world. Dormant magic waiting in vaults and treasuries, potential that would not be realized for lifetimes. The bond between dragon and rider was deeper than simple training. Something in the blood that allowed Targaryens to command creatures that should have been uncontrollable. Only those with Valyrian blood could ride dragons, and even among them, not all succeeded. The attempt to claim a dragon was dangerous. Many would-be riders burned or eaten by beasts that rejected them, their charred bones found in dragon lairs as warnings to others. But when a bond formed, it was profound, rider and dragon sharing something that went beyond words, able to sense each other across distances, responding to emotions and intentions rather than spoken commands. Some riders claimed they could see through their dragon's eyes, feel the wind beneath scaled wings, taste the freedom of flight. When a rider died, their dragon often grieved, refusing food, growing listless, occasionally dying themselves from sorrow. And when a dragon died, riders felt the loss like losing part of themselves, a phantom pain that never fully healed. Daemon Blackfire was born Daemon Waters, a bastard son of King Aegon IV, given the surname that marked him as baseborn despite his royal blood. His father legitimized him on his deathbed, along with all his other bastards, a decision that would haunt the realm for generations. Daemon was everything a king should be, handsome and skilled at arms, charismatic and beloved, more worthy than his true-born half-brother in every way except legitimacy. When Aegon IV gave Daemon the sword Blackfire, the Valyrian steel blade that Aegon the Conqueror had carried, it seemed like naming him heir in all but words. The kingdom split between those who believed legitimacy mattered more than merit, and those who thought the better man should rule regardless of birth. Daemon gathered supporters, raised his banners, and plunged the realm into the first of what would be 5 Blackfire rebellions, civil wars that weakened the crown and killed thousands in disputes over which branch of the family should sit the Iron Throne. The red grass field ran red with blood when the first Blackfire rebellion reached its climax, Daemon's forces meeting the crown's army in battle that would decide the succession. For hours, the outcome hung in balance, Daemon's skill and courage nearly winning the day, his supporters fighting with the desperation of those who knew defeat meant death. But the Targaryen loyalists held, and when Daemon fell, struck down by arrows, his rebellion died with him. They said his sons tried to reach him, fought through enemy lines to stand over their father's body, and died there defending his corpse. The sword Blackfire was lost in the aftermath, disappearing from the eye battlefield, later carried across the narrow sea by surviving rebels who fled Westeros rather than face the king's justice. For decades afterward, the sword's location became a symbol. Whoever held Blackfyre held the legitimacy of the rebel cause, and the crown offered fortunes for information about its whereabouts. 4 more Blackfyre rebellions followed the first, each weaker than the last, each led by descendants of Daemon who believed their claim was just, who gathered exiles and sellswords, who invaded from across the sea hoping to reignite their ancestors' cause. The second rebellion barely reached Westeros before being crushed. The third lasted longer but achieved nothing. The fourth involved more intrigue than actual warfare, plots and counterplots that ended with executions but little glory. The fifth and final rebellion was almost pathetic, an old man claiming a crown that no longer fit, his army defeated before it truly formed, the cause finally dying not with dramatic battle, but with a whimper. The Blackfyre threat haunted the Targaryens for nearly 60 years, a reminder that even legitimate rulers lived under threat, that the realm's loyalty could never be taken for granted, that bastard sons legitimized on a whim could tear kingdoms apart for generations. Aerion Brightflame was called Aerion the Monstrous by those who knew him, a prince whose cruelty marked him even among Targaryens known for their extremes. He believed himself more than human, thought himself becoming a dragon in truth rather than merely metaphor, his madness manifesting as grandiosity coupled with casual violence. He tortured animals as a child, graduated to tormenting servants, earned a reputation that made even hardened knights wary of his presence. His belief in his own transformation obsessed him, consumed his thoughts, drove him to increasingly desperate attempts to prove his dragon nature. In the end, he drank wildfire, the alchemical substance that burned green and hot, believing it would complete his transformation, that he would emerge from the flames as a dragon in truth. Instead, he died in agony. His insides burned, his final moments a testament to the dangerous madness that sometimes flowered in Targaryen blood. Baelor the Blessed earned his name through piety that crossed into fanaticism, through actions that seemed holy to some and mad to others, through a reign that mixed genuine faith with decisions that endangered the realm. He walked barefoot from King's Landing to Dorne to rescue his cousin, crossing desert and mountain without shoes, his feet bloody and broken by the time he arrived. He locked his own sisters in the Maegor's holdfast to prevent himself from being tempted by them, denying them freedom because his faith demanded he avoid all women. He fasted frequently, sometimes for weeks, subsisting on water and prayer, his body growing gaunt, his health deteriorating. In the end, his fasting killed him, his body too weak to sustain life, dying from self-inflicted starvation while believing he served the gods. His reign was brief and strange, remembered with mixture of reverence and pity, a king who meant well but whose devotion became destructive. Aerys II began his reign with promise, young and energetic, determined to be a great king. But something broke inside him over the years, paranoia and madness growing like weeds in his mind until they choked out everything else. The defiance of Duskendale marked the turning point, when Aerys was captured by a rebellious lord and held a prisoner for months, enduring conditions that shattered his mental state. Whatever happened in that imprisonment, whatever he experienced in those dark months, he emerged changed, seeing treason everywhere, trusting no one, finding threats in every shadow. He grew obsessed with fire, with burning his enemies, with wildfire that blazed green and terrible. His lords watched in horror as their king descended into madness, but none dared act, none dared depose him. The memory of what happened to rebels too fresh, the fear of dragons too ingrained even though the dragons were long dead. The voices Eris heard whispered of treason, told him everyone plotted against him, convinced him that even his oldest friends conspired to steal his throne. He stopped bathing, let his hair and nails grow wild, wore his crown like a curse, his appearance growing more terrible with each passing year. His queen suffered in silence, bearing his abuse because leaving was unthinkable, providing heirs because duty demanded it. His son Rhaegar grew up watching his father's decline, knowing he would inherit a realm exhausted by madness, hoping he could repair the damage if only his father would die before destroying everything. The hand of the king resigned in disgust. The king's guard looked away from atrocities they were sworn to prevent. The realm held its breath, waiting for something to break, knowing the breaking would be catastrophic but unable to prevent it. Summerhall burned on a night when dragons were supposed to return, when prophecy and ambition and magic combined into tragedy that killed a king and his heir. The palace had been built by Aegon Veth as a place of peace, smaller and more comfortable than the Red Keep, a summer retreat where the royal family could relax away from court politics. What happened the night of the fire remains shrouded in mystery, the details lost with those who died in the flames. Some said Aegon attempted a ritual to hatch dragon eggs, that he sought to restore the dynasty's power through blood magic and prophecy, that something went terribly wrong. Others claimed it was simple accident, a candle fallen, a tapestry caught, tragedy requiring no supernatural explanation. Whatever the cause, Summerhall burned so hot that stone melted, so fast that evacuation was impossible, trapping king and heir and dozens of others in an inferno that consumed the palace in hours. Rhaegar was born that night, his mother going into labor as the palace burned around her, the prince's first breath drawn in smoke, his birth cry mixing with screams of the dying. Rhaegar grew up marked by prophecy, convinced he was meant for something greater, obsessed with ancient texts and songs about heroes. He was everything a prince should be, handsome and skilled, intelligent and thoughtful, beloved by small folk and nobles alike. He played the harp and made women weep with his songs, but his eyes held sadness, as if he could see the future and knew it held only tragedy. He became convinced that in him the prophecy of the prince that was promised would be fulfilled, that he was destined to save the realm from some coming darkness. This conviction drove his decisions, led him to actions that seemed inexplicable to those who didn't understand his purpose, ultimately led him to choices that would destroy his family and plunge the realm into war. At some point, his focus shifted from himself to his children, convinced the prophecy would be fulfilled through them, that he needed 3 children to match ancient predictions about dragons having 3 heads. Lyanna Stark disappeared with Rhaegar, and whether she went willingly or was taken by force, the truth died with them. To her father and brother, it looked like abduction, like a prince stealing a betrothed woman for his pleasure, an insult that demanded response. To others later, with more time and distance, it seemed possible they had chosen each other, that Lyanna had left her betrothal willingly, that what appeared as kidnapping was actually elopement. The mystery of their relationship haunts history, arguments raging centuries later about consent and choice, about whether Rhaegar was villain or tragic hero, about whether Lyanna was victim or willing participant. What remains certain is that their union, however it began, sparked a war that ended the Targaryen dynasty, that their time together in the Tower of Joy produced consequences that echoed through generations, that sometimes love and prophecy and duty create knots that cannot be untangled. Robert's rebellion began with a lie or a truth, depending on whose version you believe, but it ended with certainty, with the dynasty toppled, with the dragons finally gone from Westeros. When Aerys summoned Rickard Stark and his son Brandon to King's Landing, he executed them in ways so cruel that the details still shock centuries later, calling it justice though it was murder, using fire in ways that demonstrated his madness for all to see. Jon Arryn refused the king's demand to send him the heads of Robert Baratheon and Ned Stark, choosing rebellion over obedience, choosing honor over law. The realm divided, some houses supporting the king out of loyalty or fear, others joining Robert's cause out of disgust at Aerys's atrocities. The war raged across Westeros, battles fought on frozen rivers and muddy fields, the outcome uncertain until the Trident. The Battle of the Trident decided everything. Two armies meeting on the banks of that wide river, the water running swift and cold. The future of the realm hanging on the outcome of individual combat between two men. Rhaegar led the loyalist forces himself, taking the field in his black armor decorated with rubies, the last dragon prince riding to war. Robert Baratheon met him in the shallows where the ford ran, the two of them fighting in knee-deep water that churned and splashed around them. Robert's warhammer struck with the force of a falling star, his strength legendary, his rage at Lyanna's supposed abduction fueling every blow. When the hammer connected with Rhaegar's breastplate, rubies exploded from the armor like drops of blood, scattering into the current, washing downstream to settle among the river stones. Rhaegar fell into the water, the heir to the Iron Throne dying in a muddy river far from home. His prophecies unfulfilled, his plans unfinished, his final thoughts unknown. They called that crossing the Ruby Ford afterward, the gems still found in the shallows decades later by fishermen, each ruby a reminder of how empires end, how princes fall, how the mighty are brought low by cold water and colder iron. Aerys waited in King's Landing as his kingdom collapsed, his paranoia reaching its peak, his final plan taking shape in his fractured mind. He had ordered the Alchemists' Guild to place caches of wildfire throughout the city, beneath the Sept of Baelor, under the Red Keep, in cellars and tunnels and forgotten spaces, enough green fire to reduce the entire capital to ash. If he could not rule, no one would. The city would burn. Everyone would die in flames, and he would be the last king of a kingdom that would cease to exist. He gave the order as Robert's forces approached, commanded his pyromancers to light the fires, spoke the words that would have killed 500,000 people. But Jaime Lannister, the Kingsguard sworn to protect him, chose to break the most sacred oath a knight could take, chose murder over obedience, drove his sword through the king's back before those words could be carried out. Aerys died on the throne room floor. His last words burned them all, his blood pooling on marble, his reign ending in betrayal, though the betrayal saved countless lives. The sack of King's Landing remains a stain on Robert's victory, a day when soldiers became a mob, when houses sworn to the dragon suddenly switched sides, when loyalty meant nothing and opportunity meant everything. Tywin Lannister's forces entered the city claiming to support the king, then turned on the royal family once inside, their banners revealing Robert's stag only after the gates were open. What followed was chaos, soldiers looting and burning, the small folk caught in the violence, The Targaryen children hunted through the Red Keep's corridors by men who saw them not as children, but as threats to the new regime. The details of what happened to Elia Martell and her babies were terrible enough that even Robert's supporters spoke of it in whispers, ashamed of the methods used to secure his throne. Elia and her children met their end in ways that demonstrated how completely the rules of civilized warfare had broken down, how far men would go to eliminate any possible challenge to their chosen king. Jaime remained in the throne room after killing Aerys, sitting on the Iron Throne when Ned Stark arrived, his sword across his knees, his white cloak stained with the king's blood. He made no excuses, offered no justifications, simply sat and waited for judgment that would brand him Kingslayer forever, a name that followed him for the rest of his life. The title carried weight beyond simple description, marking him as Oathbreaker, as the knight who had violated everything the King's Guard represented. Most never knew or cared that he had saved the city, that his broken oath prevented catastrophe, that sometimes betrayal is the most honorable choice available. The caches of wildfire remained hidden beneath King's Landing, discovered years later during construction, still deadly, still waiting, a reminder of how close the city came to destruction, how one man's decision prevented apocalypse. Dragonstone became sanctuary for the last Targaryens, Viserys and his infant sister Daenerys, fleeing there as Robert's forces approached, carried across Blackwater Bay by loyalists who refused to abandon the dragon's children. The pregnant queen had fled to the island fortress before the sack, giving birth to Daenerys while a storm raged outside, thunder shaking the walls, lightning illuminating the volcanic stone, waves crashing against the castle with such force that servants feared the sea would claim them all. The storm earned the princess her name, Daenerys Stormborn, though she would never remember that night, never recall her mother who died bringing her into a world that no longer wanted Targaryens. Viserys tried to hold Dragonstone, a boy pretending at kingship, but Robert's forces were coming and the garrison was small. Loyal servants smuggled the children away before the castle fell, carrying them across the narrow sea to exile in the free cities, the last dragons fleeing their ancestral home with nothing but their names and their blood. The Red Keep sprawls across Aegon's high hill, its walls of pale red stone rising above King's Landing, its 7 massive drum towers visible for miles. Maegor the Cruel built it over 10 years, paranoid about security, obsessed with secrets, determined to create a fortress that could withstand any siege and hide any number of hidden passages. When construction finished, Maegor invited all the workers to a great feast, then had them executed to ensure the castle's secrets died with them, their bodies disposed of in ways that left no trace. The keep has 1,000 rooms, some recorded in plans, others existing only in the knowledge of those who built them or discovered them by chance. Tunnels connect towers, passages run behind walls, doors open to nothing or to spaces that should not exist. The black cells lie deep beneath the castle, carved from bedrock, windowless and lightless, where prisoners are forgotten by everyone except the rats. Maegor's Holdfast sits at the Red Keep's center, a castle within the castle, a squat fortress built for survival during siege. Its walls are 12 feet thick, its windows narrow slits designed more for defense than light, its entrance a single drawbridge that can be raised to make the Holdfast completely isolated. Inside, the apartments are surprisingly comfortable despite the military exterior. Rooms decorated with fine furnishings, tapestries covering stone walls, hearths large enough to roast entire cattle, But comfort comes with claustrophobia, the rooms feeling enclosed despite their size, the narrow windows admitting little light, the knowledge that the holdfast was designed as a final refuge, coloring everything within. Secret passages riddle the structure, staircases that lead nowhere, rooms accessible only through hidden doors, spaces that exist between the walls where someone could hide or observe unseen. Maegor ensured he would always have escape routes, always have ways to move through the holdfast without being seen, his paranoia creating architecture that reflected his fractured mind. The Iron Throne dominates the throne room, an ugly thing made beautiful by its symbolism, comfortable to no one, designed to remind kings of their duty. It towers 15 feet high, a twisted mass of swords melted and reformed, blades jutting at angles, edges carefully dulled but still threatening. The steps leading up to the seat are treacherous, uneven, forcing anyone approaching to watch their footing, to climb carefully, to remember that power requires effort and attention. The seat itself cuts those who sit carelessly, the throne having drawn blood from nearly every Targaryen king, giving rise to superstitions about the throne rejecting unworthy rulers. Some kings died from throne cuts that became infected, their wounds turning septic, their bodies unable to fight a poison that entered through steel's kiss. The room around the throne stretches vast and cold, its high ceiling disappearing into shadow, its walls lined with skulls of dead dragons, their empty eyes watching every judgment, every decision, every moment of power exercised beneath their gaze. The dragon skulls, mounted in the throne room, tell the dynasty's history through bone, each massive head representing power that once soared through Westeros skies. Valyrion's skull dominates, so large that a horse could ride through his jaws without touching teeth, his eye sockets deep enough to climb inside, his teeth longer than swords. Vhagar's skull sits nearby, nearly as impressive, her jaws forever open in a silent roar. Smaller skulls line the walls, each telling stories of dragons lost, of power diminished, of glory fading. The skulls gathered, dust through peaceful years, servants cleaning them periodically, children sometimes daring each other to touch them, the bones becoming decoration rather than reminders. But those who truly looked could see what the skulls represented, could trace the dynasty's arc from conquest to decline in the diminishing size of successive generations, could understand that the last skulls mounted were small and deformed, proof that dragon power had died long before the last dragon drew its final breath. The Red Keep's gardens provide the only softness in a fortress built for war. Terraces where flowers bloom and fountains play, where queens once walked seeking peace from court politics. The Godswood stands in one corner, a garden around a single weirwood with its bone-white bark and blood-red leaves, a gesture toward northern customs in a castle dedicated to southern power. The gardens smell of roses in summer, of jasmine at night, of herbs from the kitchen garden where cooks grow ingredients for royal meals. But even beauty serves function. The gardens positioned where defenders could rain arrows down on anyone who breached the outer walls. The paths designed to channel attackers into kill zones, the peaceful appearance hiding deadly purpose. Dragonstone exists apart from Westeros proper, an island of volcanic rock and ancient magic, built by Valyrians in the days before the Doom using techniques now lost. The castle's walls are not stacked stone, but single pieces shaped from living rock through sorceries that softened the volcanic stone like clay, allowing it to be molded and formed before hardening again. Every surface bears dragon imagery, towers shaped like coiled worms, walls carved with scales, gargoyles with open mouths, gates formed by dragon jaws. The castle's very architecture seems alive in certain light, the stone dragons appearing to move in flickering torchlight, their eyes seeming to track movement across the courtyards. The island reeks of sulfur from volcanic vents, the smell mixing with salt spray from the sea, creating an atmosphere unique to Dragonstone. Neither entirely of the earth nor the ocean, but something between. The chamber of the painted table occupies one of Dragonstone's towers, a room dominated by a massive table carved in the shape of Westeros, every coast and river and mountain rendered in detailed relief. Aegon the Conqueror used this table to plan his invasion, studying the kingdoms he would unite, moving wooden pieces representing his forces, considering strategies and approaches. The table stretches 40 feet long, so large that moving from one end to the other requires walking. Its surface painted to show forests and fields, cities and castles, everything a conqueror needed to visualize his campaign. Lanterns hanging above cast light that makes the table seem to glow, shadows pooling in valleys, light catching on mountain peaks, the whole map taking on depth and dimension. Generations of Targaryens stood over this table, planning wars and marriages, making decisions that affected millions, the wood worn smooth where hands habitually rested while contemplating the realm. The Dragonmont rises behind the castle, a volcanic mountain that still smokes and grumbles, its peak shrouded in sulphurous clouds, its slopes scarred by ancient lava flows. Deep caves riddle the mountain, some natural, others carved by dragons seeking shelter, warmed by heat rising from the earth's depths. This is where the Targaryen dragons nested, where they laid eggs and raised hatchlings, where they slept through winter and emerged in spring. The caves smell of dragon, a scent like sulfur and musk and smoke. The walls blackened by centuries of dragonfire, the floors scattered with bones of prey brought back to feed young. Even after the dragons died, the caves remained warm, heated by volcanic activity. Empty nests speaking of vanished glory, charred walls testifying to fires that would never burn again. The Sept of Baelor rises in King's Landing's center, its 7 crystal towers reaching toward the sky, its marble steps worn by millions of feet over centuries. Baelor the Blessed commissioned its construction, pouring the treasury into a monument to his faith, creating something beautiful and holy where before had stood simpler structures. The Sept's interior glows with colored light streaming through stained glass, rainbows painting the floor during services, the air heavy with incense and prayer. Great ceremonies occur here, royal weddings and funerals, coronations and holy days. The realm's most important events staged before altars dedicated to the 7. But beneath its beauty lies darker history. The Sept built over wildfire caches that Eris ordered placed, the faithful kneeling and praying above enough explosive to reduce the building and everyone inside to ash, saved only by Jaime's intervention, the danger remaining hidden for years. The Great Sept's bells ring across King's Landing to mark important occasions, their sound carrying for miles, the different tones distinguishing between celebration and mourning, coronation and death. 7 bells, one for each god, each with its own voice, together creating harmonies that can be heard throughout the city and beyond. The bells rang for Joffrey's wedding, for Tommen's coronation, for royal deaths and births and victories, their sound becoming part of the city's rhythm, marking time in ways that transcended ordinary hours. When the bells fell silent during sieges or disasters, their absence was noticed, the city feeling wrong without their voice, as if something essential had been removed from the world. King's Landing itself sprawls around the Red Keep, 500,000 people packed into a city that grew too fast, built without planning, expanding in response to need rather than design. 3 hills rise within the walls, each crowned with important structures, with neighborhoods spreading between them in tangles of streets that follow no logic. Flea Bottom festers at the city's base, poorest of the poor crammed into buildings that lean against each other for support. Alleys so narrow that sunlight never reaches the ground. The smell of humanity packed too close, overwhelming everything else. Richer neighborhoods climb the hills, houses growing larger and cleaner with altitude, the wealthiest living closest to the Red Keep, breathing air less fouled by the masses below. The city's walls stretch 3 miles in circuit, 30 feet high, thick enough that soldiers patrol the top, studded with towers and gates that can be sealed during siege. 7 gates pierce the walls, each named and famous, each the site of its own stories and legends. The Dragon Gate faces southeast toward Dragonstone. The King's Gate opens onto the King's Road heading north. The Lion Gate looks west toward Casterly Rock. During peacetime, the gates stand open from dawn to dusk, traffic flowing in and out, merchants and farmers and travelers bringing goods and news. But when danger threatens, the gates close, the city becoming a fortress. Everyone inside trapped with their supplies and their fears, waiting for the threat to pass or for the walls to fail. The Street of Steel runs through King's Landing, lined with smithies and armorers, the air thick with smoke and the sound of hammering forges burning day and night to meet the capital's endless demand for metalwork. The finest craftsmen maintain shops here, their reputations drawing customers from across the realm. Their skills producing everything from horseshoes to swords to ornamental gates. The street glows at night with forge fires, sparks rising like fireflies, the heat palpable even from a distance. Apprentices work the bellows while masters shape metal, the rhythm of their hammering creating a constant percussion that drowns out normal conversation, the music of industry that never stops. Flea Bottom earned its name honestly, the poorest quarter of King's Landing where sewage runs in open gutters, where buildings lean so precariously that collapses kill dozens with regularity, where the smell of unwashed humanity mixes with rotting garbage and industrial waste to create an atmosphere that visitors never forget. The small folk who live there survive day to day, working whatever jobs they can find, eating whatever they can afford, dying young from disease or violence or simple despair. Yet life persists. Children play in the filthy streets. Merchants sell questionable meat in the markets. Taverns serve ale that might be more water than grain. The wealthy ignore Flea Bottom, avoid its streets, pretend it doesn't exist except when they need cheap labor or disposable soldiers. But the quarter holds half the city's population, and when the small folk of Flea Bottom rise in anger, as they did during the storming of the Dragon Pit, they become a force that no amount of gold or steel can easily stop. The Tower of Joy stood in the mountains of Dorne, round tower in the Red Mountains, remote and isolated, its name ironic given what transpired there. Rhaegar brought Lyanna to this place, keeping her there while war raged across the realm. 3 Kingsguard standing watch outside, despite their king and prince both dying without their protection. What happened within those walls remains one of history's most guarded secrets. known only to those present, most of whom died keeping those secrets. Ned Stark arrived with companions, finding the Kingsguard still at their posts despite the war being lost, despite every reason to flee or surrender. The fight that followed killed all but Ned and one other, the finest knights in the realm dying to protect whatever lay within the tower. Ned emerged carrying a baby, his sister dead, his explanations vague, and tore the tower down stone by stone afterward, as if removing the structure could erase what happened there. But questions remained. Whispers persisted, the Tower of Joy becoming legend, its true purpose known only to the dead. Valyrian steel held magic in its folding. Spells worked into the metal during forging, creating blades that never dulled, never rusted, could cut through normal steel like butter. The Targaryens brought the knowledge of its making from Old Valyria, though even they did not fully understand the process, which required dragon fire to reach the necessary temperatures. After the dragons died, no new Valyrian steel could be forged, the existing blades becoming priceless heirlooms passed down through noble families, each sword named and famous. The metal was recognizable by its distinctive ripples, patterns in the steel like water flowing, dark and light bands creating beauty that was also deadly. Blackfire, the sword Aegon the Conqueror carried, was perhaps the most famous Valyrian blade, though its disappearance during the Blackfire rebellions turned it into legend. Dark Sister, wielded by Visenya and later by Daemon, vanished during the Dance of the Dragons, lost somewhere in the depths of the God's Eye, or carried off by survivors who never revealed its location. The Targaryen words, fire and blood, captured their essence in 3 syllables, a house motto that was both threat and promise, description and warning. They had come to Westeros with fire, conquered through blood, ruled by reminding everyone what dragons could do to those who defied them. The words decorated their banners, were spoken at ceremonies, became shorthand for everything the dynasty represented. When a Targaryen spoke of fire and blood, it meant they were serious, that negotiations had ended, that consequences would follow. The words also described their history, the fires of the doom that they escaped, the blood of generations that built and maintained their empire, the price paid for power that ultimately consumed them. The 3-headed dragon on the Targaryen sigil represented multiple meanings layered atop each other, symbols that shifted depending on who interpreted them. Some said the 3 heads represented Aegon and his sister wives, the conquerors who united the realm. Others believed it referenced the prophecy about the prince that was promised, that 3 heroes would be needed to face coming darkness. Still others saw it as a simple Valyrian tradition, the symbol of dragonlords, claiming dominion over creatures that should not be tamed. The sigil appeared everywhere the Targaryens ruled, carved in stone, woven in banners, painted on shields, a red dragon with 3 heads on a black field, the colors of blood and ash, fire and shadow, all that remained of Valyria after the doom. Prophecy haunted the Targaryens more than any other house, dreams and visions coloring their decisions, driving them toward destinies they believed they could not escape. Dianys the Dreamer saved the family with her vision of the doom, but her gift became curse for descendants who saw fragments of future without understanding context, who acted on visions that might mean nothing or might mean everything. Some dreams proved true, others false, and distinguishing between them was impossible until events unfolded. Rhaegar's obsession with prophecy led him to choices that destroyed his family. convinced he was fulfilling ancient predictions when he might have been creating self-fulfilling tragedy. The dragon dreams remained in Targaryen blood, surfacing unpredictably, offering glimpses of what might be that were as likely to mislead as to guide. The phrase, "the dragon has 3 heads," echoed through Targaryen history, appearing in prophecies and dreams, interpreted in countless ways by countless dreamers. Rhaegar became convinced it meant he needed 3 children, that the prophecy demanded it, driving him to seek a 3rd child despite already having 2, despite the political complications, despite the cost. What the phrase actually meant, if it meant anything, remains unclear. Perhaps it was simply symbolic. Perhaps it referred to Aegon and his sisters. Perhaps it pointed toward future events not yet unfolded. The Targaryens' tendency to find meaning in cryptic phrases led them to make choices based on interpretations that might be wrong, to see destiny where there was only coincidence, to believe themselves guided by fate when they were actually steering themselves toward disaster. Wildfire burns green and hot, an alchemical creation that seems almost alive, that clings to whatever it touches, that water cannot extinguish. The Alchemists' Guild in King's Landing spent centuries perfecting the substance, creating variations that burned hotter or longer, that could be thrown or poured, that could turn battlefields into infernos. The Targaryens used wildfire as a substitute for dragonfire after the dragons died, attempting to maintain their reputation for fiery destruction through chemistry rather than magic. Aerys became obsessed with the substance, ordered it produced in vast quantities, planned to use it in ways that would have made the Sept of Baelor's destruction look merciful. The caches he ordered, placed throughout King's Landing, remained hidden for years after his death, discovered by accident during construction, still potent, still deadly, still waiting for a spark that would reduce the capital to ash. The substance embodied what the Targaryens had become without dragons, dangerous and unstable, capable of terrible destruction, but just as likely to destroy themselves. The Maesters of the Citadel maintained complicated relationships with the Targaryens throughout the dynasty, serving as advisors and healers, but also quietly working against dragon power. Some Maesters believed magic was dangerous, that dragons represented a threat to the natural order, that humanity would be better served if such creatures ceased to exist. Whether through deliberate sabotage or simply through ignorance, the Maesters' advice often led to decisions that weakened dragons, kept them confined, limited their breeding, made them dependent on human care that was sometimes inadequate. After the dragons died, the Maesters recorded their histories, shaped how they were remembered, emphasized their danger while downplaying their magnificence. The Grey Rats, as some called them, claimed objectivity, but their writings carried bias, their chains of office representing a power that competed with but ultimately outlasted Targaryen fire. Valyria's roads had been built to last forever, paved with fused stone that never cracked or shifted, perfectly level, following routes chosen for maximum efficiency. The Targaryens attempted to replicate these roads in Westeros, ordered the realm's highways improved, built bridges and causeways that would stand for centuries, but they lacked the magic that made Valyrian construction eternal, had to rely on ordinary methods and materials, created infrastructure that was impressive by Westerosi standards, but crude compared to what their ancestors had achieved. The roads they built still carried traffic centuries later, still connected the realm, still served travelers, a legacy more lasting than their dynasty, more useful than their dragons. Proof that sometimes the smallest ambitions create the most enduring monuments. Dragon seeds were bastards of Targaryen blood, children born from liaisons between dragonlords and common women, carrying just enough magic in their veins to potentially claim dragons. During the dance, when dragons were plentiful but riders scarce, both sides sought dragon seeds, hoping to mount the riderless beasts to gain advantage through numbers. Some succeeded. Commoners who had lived in poverty suddenly wielding power that could destroy armies, their success proving that blood mattered more than birth. But the dragon seeds also proved dangerous, some betraying the causes they had sworn to serve, others growing drunk on newfound power, making demands that their noble patrons found intolerable. Their brief moment of importance ended when the dragons died, their Targaryen blood becoming useless without beasts to ride, their descendants sinking back into obscurity, marked by purple eyes or silver hair that occasionally surfaced to remind everyone that dragonlords had once walked among the commons. The Kingsguard swore sacred oaths to protect the royal family, to obey the king's commands without question, to hold no lands and father no children, to serve until death. 7 knights in white cloaks stood as symbols of devotion and honor, the finest warriors in the realm dedicating their lives to service. But the Kingsguard also faced impossible choices, ordered to stand by while kings committed atrocities, sworn to obey rulers who deserved to be stopped, their honor becoming curse when duty conflicted with conscience. Jaime Lannister broke his oath to save 500,000 lives, earned eternal shame for doing what was right. His white cloak stained not just with Aerys's blood, but with the judgment of everyone who valued oaths above outcomes. The Kingsguard, who stood at the Tower of Joy, died defending their post after their king was dead, and their war was lost. Their devotion to duty absolute, even when it made no strategic sense. The White Knights' history was complicated, their honor sometimes leading to heroism and sometimes to complicity in horrors they were positioned to prevent. Summerhall's ruins still stood decades after the fire, blackened stones marking where the palace had been, foundations visible but walls collapsed, a monument to ambition gone wrong. No one rebuilt on that site, as if the ground itself was cursed, as if the tragedy that occurred there had poisoned the earth. Grass grew through the ruins, birds nested in tumbled masonry, nature reclaiming what had been destroyed by fire. Some claimed to hear sounds on anniversaries of the disaster, screams carried on wind, the smell of smoke when no fires burned, ghosts replaying their final moments. Whether these stories held truth or were simply legends born from tragedy, Summerhall became a place people avoided, its reputation enough to keep the curious away, its silence speaking louder than any monument could. The Targaryens practiced polygamy in their early generations. Aegon, the Conqueror, marrying both his sisters, his sons, and grandsons, sometimes taking multiple wives following his example. But the faith militants' rebellion and pressure from the church eventually forced them to abandon the practice, accepting monogamy as the price of peace with the religious establishment. The loss of polygamy did not stop their tradition of sibling marriage, that custom persisting despite the faith's objections, a compromise that satisfied neither side completely but allowed coexistence. The practice of wedding brother to sister isolated the Targaryens from other noble houses, prevented the alliances that marriage typically created, kept their bloodline pure, but also made them foreign in a realm they ruled. Some blamed the incest for the madness that periodically surfaced in Targaryen descendants, though others pointed out that many Targaryens were perfectly sane, that the connection between consanguinity and mental illness was assumed rather than proven. The tradition of burning Targaryen dead rather than burying them came from Valyria, where fire was sacred and cremation was honor. When a Targaryen died, their body was prepared with ceremony, wrapped in shrouds, placed on a pyre built in the dragon pit or on Dragonstone's shores, and burned while mourners watched. In the early days, dragons provided the fire, their flames reducing bodies to ash in seconds, the ultimate funeral pyre. After the dragons died, ordinary fire had to suffice, taking hours instead of seconds. The heat less intense, the symbolism diminished. The ashes were traditionally scattered on Dragonstone or kept in urns in the Red Keep, though different kings chose different customs. Some Targaryens were buried despite tradition, laid to rest in the Great Sept or in crypts beneath the Red Keep, their families choosing Christian practices over Valyrian customs, another sign of how the dynasty slowly adapted to the realm they ruled. Aegon V, called Aegon the Unlikely because he was a fourth son who never expected to be king, inherited the throne after his older brothers died without heirs. He had been raised away from court, spent years as a squire living among commoners, developed sympathy for the small folk unusual in nobility. His reign attempted reforms that would help the poor, limit the power of the nobility, create something closer to justice for all classes rather than just the wealthy. The lords resisted, saw his reforms as attacks on their privileges, fought him at every turn through legal challenges and passive resistance. Aegon grew frustrated by his inability to make meaningful changes, began seeking alternative sources of power, turned his attention to dragons and prophecies, convinced that restoring the beasts would give him the authority to enforce his will. His obsession with hatching dragon eggs led him to Summerhall, to the tragedy that killed him and his heir, his desire to help the realm ultimately destroying him and those he loved. The tragedy of House Targaryen lay not in their cruelty, but in how their gifts became curses, how everything that made them special also destroyed them. The dragons that won them a kingdom also made them dependent on creatures they could not control, that died and could not be replaced, leaving the dynasty weakened. The prophecies that saved them from the doom also drove them to disastrous decisions made in pursuit of visions they misunderstood. The practice of sibling marriage that kept their blood pure also isolated them from the realm, made them foreign rulers always slightly apart from their subjects. The fire that was their element consumed them in the end. Aerys's obsession with wildfire, Summerhall's flames, the metaphorical burning of all they had built. They came to Westeros as the last dragonlords, conquered through power that could not be matched, ruled for 3 centuries before that same power gutted itself in civil war and madness. Viserys grew up in exile, a child king without a kingdom, fed on stories of lost glory, promised restoration that never came, his bitterness growing with each year that his throne remained occupied by others. The free cities tolerated him because he was harmless, a pretender with no army, dangerous only to himself. He sold his mother's crown to buy food, watched his sister grow from infant to child to young woman while they moved from city to city, always one step ahead of assassins Robert supposedly sent, always looking for allies who never materialized. The exile poisoned him, turned whatever he might have been into something twisted and cruel, his dreams of dragons and thrones becoming obsessions that consumed his sanity. He called himself king, but had no subjects, claimed a throne he had never sat, lived on borrowed money and fading reputation, the last male Targaryen reduced to beggar nobility, his sister his only companion, his hopes his only wealth. Daenerys knew nothing of Westeros except stories Viserys told, tales of the Seven Kingdoms that might as well have been fantasies for how distant they seemed from her life. She remembered no mother, no father, no castle or court, only endless moving from place to place, her brother's moods swinging between grandiosity and rage, his promises that tomorrow would be different, always proving empty. She had 3 dragon eggs, petrified things that had not hatched in centuries, beautiful but dead, gifts from when her family still had friends, relics of power that no longer existed. The eggs were all she owned besides her name and blood, all that connected her to the dragons and fire that her ancestors had commanded. They sat in her possession, gathering dust, potential without catalyst, magic without trigger, waiting for circumstances that might never occur. The Targaryen line had ended in Westeros but survived in exile, reduced to 2 children living on borrowed time, their names still commanding respect in some quarters, fear in others, indifference in most. Robert sat the Iron Throne they believed was theirs by right, ruled the kingdoms their ancestor had united, slept in castles built by dragon kings. The 3-headed dragon flew nowhere in the 7 kingdoms, the red on black replaced by Robert's stag. 3 centuries of history apparently concluded, the age of dragons passed into legend. Yet legends have power of their own, and sometimes what seems ended is only sleeping, waiting for the right moment to wake. The Targaryens had come from fire once before, had survived when all other dragonlords perished, had built an empire from ashes. Whether they could do so again remained a question that only time would answer, a mystery wrapped in prophecy and dreams, sleeping like dragon eggs, waiting for the eye, fire that might make them quicken or prove them forever stone.